Chapter 2199, Ruthless Warfare. By shooting some people, the majority of people behind them were intimidated and stopped from breaking through the checkpoint. But now, those people seem to no longer be afraid of death. It's not that I'm not afraid of death, but I've reached a situation where I will surely die if I don't break through. Many people cried and begged loudly. Please, aren't we compatriots? Aren't you warriors of the Wulan tribe? You should be protecting us. Why are you blocking our path to survival? Let us go. We don't want to die. We want to live. We can't be your shield wall. Those horrible creatures will kill us all. However, the officers in charge of the border defense line remained indifferent. Although they were sweating profusely, they would never open the border line without orders from their superiors. Because if they did, they would be put to death. Killing some ordinary lizard men is nothing, but if you offend the royal family and nobles above, it will be terrible. The soldiers on the border line all had expressions of pity on their faces. As they looked at their compatriots wailing and crying in front of them, their hearts also relaxed. After all, they are not noble lords, and these soldiers are all ordinary people. They also feel very painful when they shoot their own compatriots. The wailing sounds spread throughout the entire borderline. People were crying and kneeling down to beg them to give them a way to live. At this moment, a strong wind suddenly swept in. It wasn't that Hu Mengfang and Jiang Guanghan had reached the border. Yang Xinxin once reminded them not to rush to invade the central city before dealing with the lizardman armed forces in the 4 major urban areas. The first reason is that there is a strong defensive force here, and the second reason is that they are worried that the royal family will be destroyed and activate the self-destruct device. However, the combat power of the 2 Epsilon-level mutants is too strong. The pressure they created actually spread over hundreds of kilometers. After all, this kind of continuous bombardment could easily cause a huge storm in the city due to the air currents it induced. The chain reaction triggered caused the lizard people to panic, with wailing and screaming sounds heard everywhere. Hu Mengfang and Jiang Guanghan deliberately created such a turmoil. Slake's eyes turned red with anger. This was forcing him to show up and fight the 2 of them. If he dared to leave here, the death of all the ordinary lizard men in the East City District would be a small matter, but these 2 humans, with a large number of lizard men, would attack the central city and cause huge chaos, which would be a big trouble. Boom! The huge and chaotic noise came from the footsteps of hundreds of thousands of lizard men in this urban area. They were as panicked as a flock of sheep waiting to be slaughtered, desperately trying to avoid the butcher's knife in the sheepfold and rushing towards the only hopeful gap. Hu Meng swung the sledgehammer in his hand like a windmill, and a shock wave came down, smashing it hard into the ground. With one blow, he easily killed thousands of lizard men. This time he was holding back. His purpose was not to kill them, but to force them to continue moving towards the central city. Wow! The wailing caused by fear made the crowd rush towards the borderline of the central city, like a flood. There is a natural barrier between the central urban area and the east urban area, which is a huge river with a width of more than 200 meters, connected in the middle by 3 bridges. Now the bridge is full of soldiers, and the most advanced armed spacecraft are flying in the sky, with their guns pointed at the flood of refugees in front. Under the threat of death and the anger of being pointed at by their fellow soldiers with guns, these lizard men in desperate situations finally couldn't bear it anymore. Out of some selfishness and malice, the lizard men in the back began to exert their collective strength, dragging the people in the front to attack the level. There are at least hundreds of thousands of lizard men in front of each cross-river bridge, stretching out for several kilometers in a huge crowd. When they exerted their collective strength, the group of lizard men in the front screamed, but were pushed to the borderline, facing the guns of the lizard men soldiers. Ah! Don't push, don't push. They will really shoot. The people in front were screaming madly and trying to escape, but there were already so many people behind them that there was no way to retreat. The people behind shouted, "Charge forward! What are you afraid of? There are so many of us. Do they really dare to kill us all? We are compatriots. We can't live with our consciences." Someone else shouted, "At worst, let them kill some of them. When they're tired, the rest of them can get through." The lizard men in the front row cursed and wailed angrily, looking at the soldiers on the border with pleading eyes, hoping that they could leave them a way out. A huge torrent of lizard men rushed towards the borderline. Seeing this scene, the soldiers' hands holding the guns were shaking. The commander of the troop clenched his claws behind his back, and the muscles on his face twitched. Do you really want to kill so many people? Even the most cruel butcher would feel emotionally shaken if he were to kill hundreds of thousands of his compatriots here. But he had no time to hesitate, because the crowd was coming too fast. If there is no way to control the flood that breaks through the dam in time, the flood will only rage. He shouted to everyone through the loudspeaker. No one is allowed to cross the horizontal line on the edge of the bridge, otherwise they will be killed without mercy. There is a very obvious boundary between the edge of the bridge and the ground, which is also his bottom line. You are all citizens of the Wulwan Empire. Now that the country is in danger, you should take up arms to defend your homeland instead of running away. These words reminded many lizard men. They did have weapons in their hands, although they were only level 3 or below, but holding the weapons gave them some confidence. Perhaps they can try to break through by force? Before they could figure it out, the border commander's words came true. Because no matter how much the group of lizard men in the front shouted and cursed, they were inevitably pushed forward by the people behind them. They just hoped to use the deaths of those before them to pave the way for themselves. The clear boundary of the bridge was thus crossed by the lizard men. The border commander widened his eyes in anger. Shoot! No one is allowed to cross the bridge and enter the central city today. As the border defense commander gave the order, the soldiers who only knew how to obey orders, as well as the various spaceships and mechanical war beasts guarding the defense line opened fire. Swish, 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 swish. The weapons used by the Songyuan clan have basically moved away from physical bullets and instead use laser weapons that are more lethal, have a larger ammunition storage capacity, and are lighter. Chapter 2200. Ruthless, War 5. Another advantage of these weapons is that they make relatively little noise and look very gorgeous. Laser weapons mercilessly burst out from the guns of the border soldiers, from the laser cannons of the border, and from the launch ports of those powerful mechanical war beasts, like gorgeous fireworks, penetrating the space between them and the lizard people. On this day, the soldiers of the Wulwan Empire fought with their people, and the fight was fierce. The power of laser weapons is so great that they can easily penetrate the bodies of many lizard men. In just a blink of an eye, a large number of lizard men in the front row fell to the ground as quickly as wheat was being cut, without any struggle, because the laser weapon can kill them the moment it passes through the body. The high-intensity power contained in it can burn their internal organs just by hitting the torso, leaving no possibility of rescue. The people in front fell down, and some lucky ones jumped off the 200-meter-high bridge screaming. A large number of people jumped into the water like dumplings, but jumping from such a high distance would most likely lead to death, and it would be difficult to survive. After the lizard men in front were killed, some of the people behind became the new front row. So they screamed and were swept forward by the lizard men behind them. SHHHHHHHHHHHH. The laser weapons continued to fire, and the soldiers were completely numb. They were very well trained and only knew to obey the orders of their superiors. They just pulled the trigger and saw a large number of lizard men turned into corpses, falling down easily in rows. The scene looked extremely bloody, but it also made them feel a little excited, and even had a sense of beauty in the aesthetics of violence. Blood instantly dyed the area at the edge of the bridge red and trickled into the moat. Soon, the river turned blood red. The soldiers were numb from killing, and their minds became dazed. They forgot what they were doing, as if they were playing a game, and their minds were blank. After experiencing great stimulation, organisms will choose to escape from the facts because of the great trauma in their hearts. Many soldiers' eyes became empty. Slaughtering their own compatriots forces them to close their hearts to avoid collapse. But some soldiers had already collapsed and dropped their weapons in tears. However, these people were quickly shot by the supervisory team behind them, on the grounds that they were very dangerous and might turn their guns against them. So the other hesitant soldiers immediately raised their guns and continued shooting. More and more lizard men died. The corpses piled up into a thick and bloody road, almost blocking the bridge head. But the lizardmen's advance did not slow down. Because in the rear, when Hu Meng transformed into the nine-tailed fox to deal with them, he was even more ruthless. The desperate wails, like the screams of evil spirits, resounded across the 3 bridges along the entire border. You cruel executioners! Even if I become a ghost, I will not let you go. Damn it! You really want to take our lives. What are you waiting for? Are you going to fight them? Finally, some desperate lizard men picked up their weapons and started shooting at the soldiers on the bridge with those weapons that were only level 3 or below. With the first person to fire, there will soon be a second, a third. The power of weapons below level 3 is equivalent to that of human assault rifles, which is far inferior to that of border garrison troops. But there are too many people here. Because at the beginning, only a few 100,000 people gathered in front of the 3 bridges. But people can't help but keep pouring in here. The number of lizard men driven away by Hu Mengfang and Jiang Guanghan is increasing, and Lin Ling's total number is no less than 1 million. The defense line was really shaken. Even the most numb heart cannot bear to slaughter a large number of compatriots, like cutting wheat. Many lizard men soldiers could not help but start vomiting, and some of them collapsed mentally, fainted on the spot, and foamed at the mouth. The border line of the central city was crumbling, and the soldiers had even lost the idea of resistance. They even chose to shoot themselves rather than continue shooting their compatriots. General Slack, what are you doing? Emperor Si Yi's roar was heard, and his fingers scratched the table, leaving 3 deep scratches on the table made of expensive stone. Are you allowing the enemy to invade the imperial city? Stop them now. Of course, the central urban area has a strong garrison. However, there are too many royal families and nobles in the central urban area. If strangers of Hu Mengfang and Jiang Guanghan's level are allowed to break in, it will pose a huge threat to these powerful people. If the imperial city was destroyed, even if the invaders could be killed, it would not be something these powerful people could accept. Slack was almost going crazy at this point, because she couldn't figure out how to get rid of these 2 people who worked so well together. But the situation was already extremely critical, and she had no choice but to rush out. The earth shook. The movement of such a massive creature could not have been silent. A huge 2-legged snake sprang out from the ground, and a thick silver laser gun shot out from behind the 9-tailed fox. But Jiang Guanghan was prepared. He stood in front of Hu Mengfang, roared, and used all his strength to block the sledgehammer in front of him. Boom! Jiang Guanghan's body was shocked and flew backwards, but was quickly caught by Hu Mengfang with his 9 tails. Jiang Guanghan's blood and energy were shaken, but he was able to withstand Slake's attack. Then, it's their turn next. Slake did not give up and still tried to activate the power of Eye of Medusa to freeze the 2 people first. 0.1 seconds. She only needs 0.1 seconds. As long as the other party does not have time to unlock her ability, she is confident that she can kill the weak fox first. By then, Jiang Guanghan alone would definitely not be her match. The pupils turned into gray vertical pupils, and a huge gray light covered a large area in front. The bodies of the 9-tailed fox and Jiang Guanghan were both dyed gray, but in just a moment, a pink mist flashed in their eyes, and the petrification of their bodies was instantly lifted. Moreover, Hu Mengfang's ability has a special effect. Self-hypnosis can stimulate one's enormous potential and remove the limitations of the subconscious mind on the body. This is why, even though there is a huge gap in the ability index, Jiang Guanghan was still able to completely block the silver laser gun of Slake, who has an ability index of 26,000 points, with just the strength of his body and a metal hammer. However, the price is naturally that after the battle, the body will enter a refractory period. However, they can fully afford that price. With me, we'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.